Okay, so here is a thing I modeled to demonstrate this stuff. All right, so the first thing we're going to talk about is the plan. And as usual, I'm recording this for your viewing pleasure. We're live, indeed. So here we go. Wonderful. This is the plan of, let me just zoom all of this, zoom all extents. Okay, so this is the thing I randomly drew. It's just mostly swoopy so that I can show you how things progress through these models and the way the cuts are affected. This is a top view. You all know how to make 2D, so if I grab this and I type make 2D and I hit OK, okay, is this a plan? Is this a plan? No, this is what best you could call it is a roof plan. So the takeaway is just looking at the top of your model and make 2D is not a plan. It would probably be categorized as a roof plan. And what we want to do is go back and remember the cut, right? 3 to 4 feet above the ground. We're going to cut this thing, and then that's going to be where our plan is. So I'm just going to delete this baby. And now we're going to do the cut. So the cut is, I'm demoed it briefly in the past. It's a thing called a clipping plane. So all you do is you type, we're in the top view, type clipping plane. First corner of rectangle, just pull it across. This is going to auto-generate somewhere in, oh, so this is at 0, 0. Great, whatever, you move it after this. So after you draw it in the top view, you come down to the front view. And now you can move this up. So look at the top window, and as you move it up and down, this cut is changing. So where should this cut be? This is the grid. I know this is 3 feet. It could be like anywhere between here and here. I'm gonna put it there. So where this yellow line is important. This right here indicates direction. So sometimes you have to flip it. So if it's pointing up, it's only showing the stuff above the plane. If it's pointing down, which is what you want for the plan, you want this axis to be pointing down, that means it's showing everything beneath the plane, which is what you want. And the last thing you need to negotiate is this over here. So if I turn the top view off, nothing is clipped. Front view, now half the building is clipped. Right view, now this view is clipped. Interior perspective, now this is clipped. Kind of cool, but you know, not what we're going for. So you will have to toggle this. So if it's like, I can't, it's not working, it might be that this isn't clicked. And if you can't find that, all you have to do is click on this clipping plane and it will pop up in the properties. Okay, so just gonna grab this, type flip again. It's pointing down, that's perfect. This is my plan. You can even see I did my due diligence and put glass in the windows. So this little black line is the glass. You can see that it's cutting things. This is what you want. So once you have this all sorted, you can scroll over everything. I'm gonna hold Control to deselect. Hold on, I think I've locked some stuff. Okay. I just locked these, a plane I have in the background as well as the clipping plane, just so I don't select it. Grab everything. I don't know why some things are not selecting. Okay, here we go. Grab everything and then type make 2D. Current view, maintain source layers, okie dokie. And here you go. This is a pretty good place to start. You have, this is the glass of that swoopy glass. You have it cutting through these sort of mullions here that I diligently drew. So proud. These columns. Then you have these walls. And you even have glass here. So that's a great start. There are some things that I don't have though. So what's one of the things I don't have? So doors are very straightforward. If we think back to this precious video, right? It's a rectangle and an arc. So this is why it's not something that I usually model, because it's very fast to draw. So a door, how wide is a door? Two feet, nah. Standard's 3 feet. So your standard door is gonna be 3 feet. Oh goodness. So I'm gonna just draw a tiny little line where I want the start of my door cut to start, and I'm gonna offset it by 3 feet. And that's my door opening. So the cut in that wall over there, that's 3 feet. Well, might be a little bigger, but anyways, I'm gonna draw that here. After I've drawn these two things, I'm going to trim it. So I can type trim, select the cutting objects. These two lines are the cutting objects, and then the objects to trim is this. What layer do you think these things should be on? It will probably be the same color as a wall, but keep in mind you have now made 2D something and you have massive new layer structures. So just remember now that you're doing the drawing, your layer structure has changed. I'm just gonna move this to the wall level. Change object layer. Now we draw a rectangle. There's our door. It's like so simple. I just drew a rectangle from this point to the midpoint of that. It's a door. It's thinner than a wall. It's very straightforward. Doesn't really have to be anything of anything. I'm going to rotate it. So I will grab the corner and another corner and rotate it. if it is rotating in, you want it to be on the corner, the edge that it typically is. So for example, you know, that's not entirely correct representational wise. It should be edge to edge on the rotate. And the last thing you're gonna do is draw an arc. So you can come over here to this tool. It's the thing that looks like a V and an arc. Right click. I think it's easiest to draw this one, which is the arc, start, and direction at start. 1, 2, 3. Get used to drawing doors. It's just easier. So now we have windows, we have doors, we can even put this on a door layer. Last thing we need, what else do we need? So furniture. I'm gonna show you the place I use. As some of my other students said, they're gonna use the Long Beach City College's computers to download these things because they declared it sketchy, and I don't disagree, but I have been using it for a really long time. It's called CAD Forum. And it is CZ, which means check, I think. And the website looks like it's from 2005. Oh, classic. Oh my gosh, killing me, CAD Forum. All right, never mind. Let's find another place. CAD 2D blocks. These are not free. Shameful. Oh my gosh, it's listed by Autodesk, so it is not that sketchy. It's the first one. All right, let's go here. CAD blocks free. I recommend CAD Forum, but the website is down, so. Free 2D CAD models. And then you have a range of things here. We're looking for furniture. And then there are these blocks of stuff that you can download. These are essentially already drawn and like perfectly ready for inclusion in your project. So obviously some of them are free and some of them cost 15 pounds. So we're probably gonna stick to the free things. Free download. Wow, keep doing it. Just, I'm not gonna click. So this is a DWG on my desktop. DWG is AutoCAD format. File, import. This DWG, open. Okay, uh-oh. I know I just did the wrong metric. All right, so for whatever terrible reason, this thing came, I know exactly what I did. This is 900 feet. That seems wrong. So I'm just going to delete this and import it again. Zoom, extents. So file, import, open. Yes, so your model units were in feet and its layout units are also in feet, let's say. Okay. Nope, still not working. So when this happens, I usually just try to open a new one. I'm just gonna go over here, kill this thing, file, nil, no. File, import. Here we go. Once I've imported this thing, I'm gonna measure it. It's 900 feet. That's just not working. I'm gonna change the scale manually. So it's still 18 feet, but we're getting there. Scale. I'm gonna guess this is supposed to be 30 inches. So this is still too big. So you will probably have to do this for some of your other blocks. It's just like importing anything from anywhere.
If we put furniture in already, will it show up when we cut it?
That's where you have to be careful where you put your cut. So just make sure you can see it and then make sure it's visualizing properly. So once you've scaled it, maybe in another window, you can then paste it. Zoom, extents, Control V. It is just like in outer space. Yeah, I got this. I'm gonna move this to 0, 0. Zoom, delete this, zoom, extents, and now it will go to 0, 0. All right, so this is my little table. This is like a really big space. It's like cafeteria, fancy cafeteria. So again, make sure you keep these over on your drawing. They don't need to necessarily go into your model, but whatever. So we have doors, we have windows, we have furniture. We're gonna do the walls in Illustrator. The last thing we need to do is scale. So grab everything. This is the simplest way I have been able to remember how to scale. Type scale, origin point, click, scale factor. 1 divided by 12, enter. If we are scaling, so we just took it from feet to inches. So now we're going to scale it again to get it to the, let's say, 1/8 scale. So again, select everything, scale, 1 divided by 8, enter. I think most of you will be quarter scale. So you would do 1 divided by 4. Now you can sort of check it. If you type distance and you click from corner to corner, it is 10 inches. So that will fit on my sheet. That's mostly why I just did that. Now you can export this. So select it just like your other Make 2Ds, File, Export selected, DWG. Once you are in Illustrator, you can maybe make sure that your sheets are 11 by 17 inches because that's what it will be in the end. We're going to be putting these on specific sheets in InDesign, so it's not like you need to make them formatted nicely here, but it would make sense to know the size of things. I'm going to just open it. Oh my God. Drawing. Nice. Open. Oh God. I didn't mean that. I meant plan. File. Open. Plan. Plan DWG. Open. Okay, so this is where scale matters. So your options are original size, and then it's saying scale units, inches, scale to fit artboard, which we don't want, or scale by. So this would be if you brought in your 2-scale design and then needed to scale it here. We already scaled it, so original size seems to work. It's saying scale 1 units equal 1 inches. I'm just gonna click OK, see what happens. All right, does this look like it's 10 inches by 7 inches? No. This sheet is like 11 by 17-ish. This is like way too small. So even though you say something file, open. Oh, wait, let me kill this. File, open. Even though it says original size, you assume that it's just going to open correctly. But, you know, some of the things that we have discovered is there's no measurement. There's no inches or millimeter or feet or miles or picas. There's none of that attached to this file format. So you have to specify it. So if this is scale 1, units 1, and then my options are points, picas, inches, millimeters, centimeters, pixels, I have been working in feet. Some of you have been working in inches. So this will be 1-to-1 and your drawing will look perfect. Because I was working in feet, I need to scale this by 12 because there are 12 inches in a foot. Hit OK. Boom. That's the drawing I wanted. Grab all this I'm just going to quickly make this all black. Just an FYI, most of your line drawings should be black. When you use color, it should be to highlight a specific thing, not just what Rhino kicked out to you. The last thing we're gonna do is poche the walls. The way that I poche walls is I lock everything using the little lock here. I make a new layer, so that's clicking this white rectangle down here. I will call it poche. I'm gonna move it to the bottom so that it's underneath all my lines. And now I'm going to trace colored rectangles or other geometry. So zooming way in. Let's say we are going to color this wall in. Using the rectangle tool, making it have no stroke, so that's clicking on the outline and then clicking the white with the red line through it, that means none. Going over here, let's make this a color, like gray. I'm just going to have a nice grand old time drawing some colored rectangles. Oop. So if you, that works super well with most of you, if you have like rectangles, walls that are straight, this works well. If you have curvy walls or bendy walls or things that do not fit well with the square, you can also use this pin tool. This is where having everything locked is very beneficial. So you can also create a new path right over top of everything. That's not just a rectangle. But again, really important, you have all your stuff locked because the pen tool will try and modify other lines. Make sure you're doing this all on a different layer. Okay, so that's the basics of that. I have a door, I have a window, I'm gonna poche all my walls, I have furniture, poche, poche. Beautiful. Just to give you an idea, there is sometimes, I think that this won't be the case for most of you, that these lines will come in like whole and beautiful and wonderful. If you have, for example, this, like a sphere or a circle, you can actually just go ahead and make this filled. But usually your lines will not be all perfect and nice in a way to do that. All right, so we've gone over plans. Now we will go over sections. Just gonna delete this. So a section, what's a section? What's a section, y'all? It's a section. Did you just say it's a section? It's a cut, for sure. So what's it cutting through? Yeah, it could be in a lot of places, but it's cutting through the middle of the building somewhere. And it's showing the stuff that you cannot see on the, if you're looking at it again, if we're zooming around out here, I'm gonna change this view. If we're zooming around out here, like we can't necessarily see what's going on inside. There might be like a floor that's in the middle of this building and we will never know because we are just looking at it from the outside. So that's the beauty of the section. So the section is just this clipping plane again, but rotated. I'm just going to rotate this. You can also just draw a new one. All right, so I have my clipping plane. I have it pointing in a direction, but it's not making a section because this is not correct. Perspective, that's pretty cool, right? Again, it's nice visual. So this is essentially what a section is. It's cutting it to show what's happening on the inside and show those relationships. So you might have interior elevations, but that still doesn't show a relationship between this space and this balcony I have here. But what we want, this is a nice drawing and all, but we want a more formalized one. So let's see if the right view, yep, there we go. So this is the section that you will want. Right now, it is cutting through a window, perfect. It's capturing all the stuff. So all that was putting the clipping plane in the middle of some glass, pointed in a direction, and here we are. You can also add things to this. Usually you will not see doors in a section unless it's in an elevation. But, you know, I'm cutting through a window, the glass is there. You can add furniture. So going back to this CAD block, people that are just the clickbaitiest place in the world. Like right on the main page, there was this armchair recliner that's a 2D drawing. So when you see things that are like in elevation or in side view, you can include these in your drawings as well. This is an elevation. This is an elevation. It's just a front look at a wall. So you can also include that, but it's not really important. What is important to include, above all things, is a person. So similar to how I did this, you might want to include a person in all your sections because that gives it scale, right? If I didn't have this person here, what's the size of this presentation? So you kind of immediately know how big these drawings are because there is a person here. So in other words, this one's a little bit simpler, but just grab it. Don't click on that. Make 2D. Grab it. Control, make 2D. Okay. In the top view. Just move it out of the way. You do not need this clipping plane here. And this is your section. there's like some work to be done to make it clear. Like this all needs to be pochade in similar. So I would make a pochade in here, as well as here, as well as here. Your sections will be something that you develop a lot over the next month. There might be a ground plane like that. And there will be like a little person here demonstrating scale. But that's the gist. So what you would still want to do is take this, scale it, click once, 1 divided by 12, enter. Scale it again, click once, 1 divided by 8, enter. Grab everything, file, export selected, AutoCAD DWG. Section, okay. Go over to Illustrator, file, open. Section, open. 1 to 12, okay. So what's important here, I am just going ahead and making everything black, but you should also be using what you learned last time. You're gonna be making specific lines lighter and darker. You're gonna be poching in these walls. And yeah, this will take time. You don't necessarily know how to draw it, but you should definitely just start with cutting a section, making it 2D, and then bringing it into Illustrator. The last thing we will talk about is super simple because you already know how to do renderings. And that is what an interior rendering is. So the renderings that you will have due are exterior. You know, we're just flying around the outside and we're taking a cool picture like this. It's also important to do renderings of what's on the inside. And the way that you do that is you sort of just zoom in to your building. You'll eventually enter past the wall. So, yay, we're inside. But this is not like a great view, right? It's not really showing anything. And that's because there are 2 parameters that you should modify for interior renderings. And that is the lens length, which again comes from photography. So it has to do, it's funny because iPhones just came out with that, but like it has to do with how much of the lens you're seeing. So 50 looks really great from the outside as an object. But when you're in an interior space, you have peripheral vision that informs your understanding of the space. And you can't see anything peripheral with this lens. So typically, I will use something like 24, and it allows me to zoom out and see a lot more of the space. So first thing you're gonna do is change your lens length. The second thing you're gonna do is adjust the Z location. So classic incorrect renderings is what we call ant view, where it's like 2 feet from the ground, or something like this, where it's 31 feet from the ground. When you are presenting a rendering, you are typically presenting what a human is going to encounter in your space. So this view on the Z location should be approximately the height of eyeballs of humans, which I will call 5.5 feet, which is my height. Yes. So that seems pretty reasonable. If you feel like it needs to be 6 feet, okay, fine. If you feel like it needs to be 5 feet, also fine. But it's just not 1 foot and it's not 15 feet because it actually makes it hard to understand your space. So you've adjusted the lens length, you've adjusted the Z height. You can now hit render again, but the last thing to know is that it becomes really annoying to go around and doing this over and over again. So you can actually go File, View, Set View, Named Views, and save it as Interior Perp, whatever, 2. And it will be right here in this window. When you get towards making lots of renderings at once, you can then click around and it will just automatically switch. Whoops, I didn't mean to put you there. Switch to the different views you've set. It's the same thing, just go back to your render tools. I know this is all set up correct and hit the render.